Good day, my listeners. So no doubt, if you follow up on Arc Raiders, you've heard about the internal war going on between PvP and PvE players. If you haven't, the problem is as simple as it is complex. PvE players are starting to feel like the game is starting to cater heavily towards PvP, while ignoring the PvE side of the game in both gameplay and community. While the PvP player standpoint is that these interactions are just part of the game and people have to put up with the freedom that the game provides. Now, no matter what side you are on this argument, the facts remain clear that this is a problem within Arc Raiders that some people deem problematic enough to leave over. PvE players are starting to feel like the game doesn't respect in the slightest the way they desire to play, and the PvP players are more than happy to see them leave, which doesn't help the community in the slightest. So, feel free to sit back and relax while I talk about the topic, maybe keep it on in the background, or if you choose to watch, I'll have some pop-ups here and there to deepen my points and whatnot. Now, to give some background on the person speaking, I sit right in the middle, or on the PvPvE side of the community. Take a shot every single time I say PV something, don't do it, you'll die. I think it's just as important to have people who carry defibs to help raiders and hunt robots specifically, as it is to have snakes who want to shoot you in the back. I myself enjoy dropping into Stellar Montes for some PvP action, as much as I enjoy going for the Queen in PvE, and my attract to not ratio I say is pretty solid to the point I consider myself to be successful in this game. So, with that out the way, the main question is, why does this matter at all? I mean, quests are going to run dry and people are going to find the things they want, and eventually all that'll be left is PvP, right? And in most cases, yeah. And it's for this very reason most attraction shooters have mandatory wipes, because eventually the game becomes PvP only without it. The problem here is that Arc Raiders is as much of a PvP game as it is a PvE game, hence it being marketed as PvPvE. And because of the absence of a mandatory wipe, there has to be a motivation to come back and play the game past PvP. And as it stands right now, Arc Raiders caters heavily towards the PvP side. Just think about it. What's the motivation to take out Arc units past your benches? You could say that they break down into valuable parts, but basically every part you could get from them could also be retained from your refiner, using a combination of either crafting the base parts themselves in the refiner, or buying parts for seeds from Celeste, or scrapping items from other traders. Not to mention, a lot of the parts can just be found through general looting. And other than XP, which at a certain point doesn't matter when you hit the cap, robots become more of a nuisance than an interesting aspect of the game. And if you try and bring gear that is more focused on the PvE side of the game, you put yourself in a huge disadvantage by either using expensive weapons that are mostly ineffective versus other players, or losing quick use slots for a cloak, for example, that has no purpose in pure PvP. Meanwhile, let's look at the PvP side of things. By fighting other players, you create the same, if not less noise than if you were fighting something like a Bastion, for example, but to that point even a tick blows up when shot. It's almost always going to take less resources to take down a player. You get the benefit of looting an entire pack of things that can't be looted off of bots. And on top of that, 80 to 90% of the easy to craft and upgrade weapons, and gadgets for that matter, are tailored to being effective in PvP. And because arcs are mostly ignored in PvP, you'll never see things like hole crackers and photoelectric cloaks. This game is also very ambush centric, so if you play your cards right, you can almost guarantee victory in some fights and consistently reap a reward of varying value. I'm sure I could add more to this list, but altogether this alone makes PvP very easy to get into, makes it easy to accomplish if played right, and rewarding through XP and loot with the same if not less risk compared to the PvE counterpart. And all this culminates to a point where PvE players, who are naturally going to be less proficient against players, are forced to carry expensive gear that has little to no use in PvP to take part in the things that they enjoy, which is already one of the loudest activities for a reward that can be crafted in the lobby. Meanwhile, people that are good at PvP will have an even larger advantage over their PvE counterparts for a huge reward if they take these players out, especially if they bring in good gear meant to take out other players, which is cheap to make at a base level. This gap only widens when you take into account weapons like the Tempest, Bobcat, or the Volcano. Now, I'm not saying that PvP has to go by any means. Understand that removing PvP would kill Arc Raiders. I fully believe that, at least. It's instrumental to the way the game plays. But they have to find a way to balance all these things to keep each part of this community alive, because they all act like pillars to this game. If the PvE players leave because there's no motivation to take part in things they enjoy, and it's expensive to even try, Arc loses a part of its soul, which is the fantasy of humans versus bots. Then if no one wants to take part in events like the Monarchs and the Queens, because they always become hunting grounds for people who try, the hybrid community, or PvPvE, will leave because if they wanted to fight other players, there's no shortage of games that allow you to do that with little to no setup times, unlike Ark. And then, the PvP community will fracture, because hard truth coming up, a lot of people only enjoy PvP as long as it's easy for them. Look no further than the people posting online about how proud they are to lie and backstab other players in the game. And while that's just part of the freedom this game allows, and no matter your feelings on the topic, if this game becomes straight shoot on sight because that's all that's left, these players that have come to rely on more so underhanded methods to get ahead will get destroyed because they can't engage in a community that no longer exists. Then they'll leave because they can't keep up with the hardcore PvP community. And if this escalation of events sounds a little similar, that's because this is what happened to Tarkov. And while yes, they can release a PvE only mode, all that'll do is create a toxic community where PvE players are telling the PvP players to get a life, and the other side is just telling them to get good. And the community that wanted to enjoy all aspects of the game, they'll just go somewhere else. I know this sounds extreme, but like I said, this is what happened to Tarkov, which nowadays, while it's still a very popular game, 9 times out of 10 people you ask about it would say they'd rather watch it than play it. Just go to Twitch and it proves my point. Now I do have ideas to attempt to fix all this, which are all my opinions of course, so they may be imperfect, but the hard facts are, Embark may opt to do nothing to remedy this issue at the end of the day and just let it rot. They plan to support this game for 10 years, and catering to all sides of the community may not be part of the game plan. We just don't know. So firstly, I'm going to give some tips and mindsets to try and have for my PvE players that I got through my time in games like DayZ, just in case support for what they want to do doesn't come. And then I'll go into what my ideas are to try and help the game and community as a whole. Now for my PvE players, this is for y'all. Tip number 1, players are not friends or hostiles anymore. Everyone is an opportunist. I see some of y'all walking around with not the right mindset, and you should always be treating people with an air of caution. What I mean is someone may see a hurt raider and try and take the opportunity to help them. They may also take the opportunity to finish them off. You just don't know. Don't turn your back, don't leave yourself open, always have a way to break away. That mindset won't destroy the aspect of interacting with other people, but it will always have you thinking what if, and creating scenarios where you could either win or escape. Tip number 2, people don't have to have line of sight with you to speak with you. When you speak to a stranger, you should always be concealed or behind cover. There is no reason to be face to face with another raider who isn't part of your team unless you are actively reviving them. This is even more true if the raider's weapon is unholstered. There are people who would use words to get you out of position. Stay aware. Tip number 3, have some zero tolerance rules. What I mean is you should have rules that if broken, you open fire regardless. For example, the last tip, people don't have to have line of sight to speak with you. For me personally, I'll always be willing to have a conversation with a player. But if I notice you are actively making an attempt to have a line of sight on me to shoot me, even more so if your weapon is unholstered, I will always unload on you, no exceptions. You should be making these rules based on your playstyle and the ways you've been knocked out in the past. Tip number 4, you can absolutely attack a player to scare them away or down them and lead them to the wolves. You are never obligated to finish a raider off. There's been many times where I've had a raider in my path that I can't sneak around, and I've either shot at them or thrown grenades to see which way they run and go in the opposite direction to avoid them. You can use this in combat to break away or out of combat to create a safe path for you. Also, if you notice a troublesome raider, there's been times where I've gone through the trouble of knocking them specifically and then leaving the area to have one less risk in my game. Once again, you decide the method based on your confidence. And last, tip number 5, you are never fully committed to any action. This was kind of touched upon in the last tip, but by any, I mean any action. You can break away from a fight, you can break away from a conversation, or from a crate that you were looting, or from a match that is just too hot. Don't ever become narrow-minded, use your head. Now those are the tips that I have for my PvE players. I know those are a little bit more mindset oriented than gameplay, but the main complaints I see from the PvE community is that they're being misled by the PvP side and put into places where they can be taken out easily. So hopefully a change in mindset is what you need to get yourself a little bit more consistent with your raids. Now for my ideas on how to fix the issue, I'm gonna spitball a little bit here and enjoy myself, so while we're trying to be realistic, we're also having fun. My first idea is a little less radical because I think it would be easier to implement, while the second one is an idea I ran away with and is inspired by another video I saw, which I'll credit of course. Now my first idea for those who are in the know is to implement the Division's rogue mechanic. Now for those who don't know, let me explain. The Dark Zone in the Division was a PvPvE area where loot drops were increased, but there were harder enemies and the possibility for players to go rogue to drop you for your loot. Sound familiar? Now the mechanic had a dedicated button to go rogue, which led to some funny moments because if someone stood still for too long or strafed too far in one direction without changing, you knew what was about to happen. So to keep the element of surprise and PvP fluid, I would change the system to go off of a damage threshold. Basically, after you deal a certain amount of damage to a player, you would automatically go rogue. It would go off of a meter that would slowly fade to prevent people from cheesing it and trying to down someone without going rogue. This meter would also top out immediately if you down someone in one shot or knock out a non-rogue raider. Now going rogue wouldn't do anything crazy like ping your location through walls or something, but it would do three things. First, you would have a soft red pinging light coming from your pack. Not enough to completely give you away no matter where you go, but enough that if a player sees you first, they would know you actively attacked someone recently. Secondly, for the period of time that you would be rogue, you would be unable to call attraction or use hatches, unless that time would overlap with the end of match timer. Thirdly, other players would be able to attack you without the risk of going rogue themselves, and your timer would also actively pause for a few seconds when you're hit. You would truly have to escape the heat. This change would do a few things. PvP is now a much more complicated decision. Do I risk projecting to the entire server that I actively engaged in PvP? Can I take the heat of everyone having a free pass to attack me? And how will I evade capture for enough time so I can escape the lobby? PvE players will have a clear indication that someone is hostile on top of a raider flare going off, giving them the ability to avoid the area and the person. PvPers will use the flares as a sign to flock to because it's PvP without any consequence. They may even save the person being attacked. You can also give bonus rewards for those who survive their timer and those who would finish off the rogue raider. The damage threshold mechanic would stop people from trying to bait others to go rogue to get a free down. You have to fully commit to going rogue, and you would never be able to finish someone from full health before doing so. And if you would down somebody, you would go rogue regardless. And just how it was in the Division, if one teammate goes rogue, everyone does. You share in the consequences of your teammates' actions. There is one more thing I would do to bring this mechanic all together, and that would be only in solos. You can revive yourself with a defib once per match, albeit at the same speed or slower than a normal revive. After that, others have to do it for you. This would make it so if you get down in a position where you can't be easily finished, you would have the opportunity to get yourself up and try and take out the person that downed you, especially since they would be rogue at that time and they would be free no matter what. I think this mechanic with some extra polish could make PvP counters have a bit of a price, but lead to some extra fun, and make it so it isn't as free as it is now the PvP when compared to the PvE content that's in the game currently. And now for my second more radical idea. If you thought that first idea was radical, whew, okay. My second idea is factions. Now before I start, my version of this idea and the way I set it up in my head is inspired by a video made by Darth Trooper Gaming, where he goes into factions and bounties and the whole nine. His ideas are super dope, and I heavily recommend that if you want to see what other ideas people are bringing to the table, go check out his video on this. Now for my spin on this, I would have three factions. For ease of speaking about them, I'll call them the Protectors, Arc Hunters, and Raiders. These factions would fit each part of the community: the Protectors for PvPvE, the Arc Hunters for PvE, and the Raiders for PvP. They would each have a faction-specific augment, a specific outfit they would get after earning enough reputation in said faction and is only usable while in that faction, and a shop that sells things relating to the ideals of that faction, with one rare item on a shorter cooldown than what's in the OG stores. By doing things related to their faction, players would earn reputation that fills a bar. When maxed, it gives one token that allows them to buy something from their specific faction store. You would only be able to have one token at a time to prevent people from farming hundreds of them to abuse the store, and there would be a faction XP cap per raid to prevent every raid from giving a token. So now that we understand how the XP and the currency works, let's start with the protectors. These are the people that right now like being friendly and helpful to the community. They would gain XP from reviving and healing people outside of their own party and dropping items for others that are picked up within a certain time frame. Because of the risk and difficulty of doing this, their rep bar would fill the fastest. Their tokens would allow them to buy large bundles of green bandages, a medium bundle of blue bandages, a pair of Vita shots, or a pair of defibs. They would also have access to packs of defensive gadgets. Think things like smoke grenades, barricade kits, and sensor grenades. The point of these shops isn't to completely replace the need to gather materials for these items, but to alleviate the cost of doing the job the faction is known for, and in the long run they would save more materials than they spend. Their faction augment would be an MK3 tactical pack that allows them to heal others, not themselves, we don't want another lifeline, 25 to 30% faster. This would work on their own teammates, allowing them to heal their allies up to fighting shape faster and save those seconds that might save a fight. Their faction shop deal would be on heavy shields. Heavy shields are already pretty unpopular at the moment, and seeing how you would be at the most risk trying to do your faction goals, you would need the most protection, and this item would be on an hour or two reset timer. People who straight PvP would be allowed to join this faction of course, but the way you gain rep and rewards for doing so doesn't fit in with the way PvP plays in this game usually. Next up are the Arc Hunters. These are for my players that want to fight robots mostly and have easier access to the tools to do so. They'll also be able to acquire gadgets to help them outplay PvPers who would normally have an advantage over them, assuming they learn how to use them properly. These guys would gain rep through a bounty board. How it would work is that before each raid you would select one of 3 bounties to bring back a certain amount of arc parts that vary based on the difficulty of the chosen arc. For example, 5 tick pods for a small reward, 3 wasp drivers for a medium one, and 1 rocketeer drive for a large reward. These bounties would only be eligible for your next raid, and the part has to be found in raid. No bringing in items from your stash to autocomplete. Also, these jobs would open additional slot in your inventory specifically for the requested part during your raid. Once you put the item in, it locks, making it so you can't use it for extra storage, and this slot is also not protected. You have to make it out to claim your bounty. Once you earn your bounty though, the Arc Hunter shop would have a plethora of gadgets meant to cover your back as you hunt your targets, bring down your targets easier, and help you set up ambushes for PvPers on your tail. Think of shock mines, showstoppers, and gas trap grenades. Your deals would be on tools meant to go specifically after arcs. I mean things like hull crackers and cloaks. If these items are going to be putting you at a disadvantage in PvP or have no use in PvP, it's only fair you have easier access to them on a shorter cooldown if you choose to dedicate yourself to this. Your faction augment would be an MK3 looting pack that allows you to have the chance to find an Etra arc specific component when looting robots, decreasing in chance the more expensive the component is. But it would allow the possibility of finding an Etra Queen reactor, for example, making members of this faction a great ally to have for big hunts or a very lucrative target. The idea of this is to make arc hunting weapons less of a rarity on the field, make these hunts more profitable, and make access to equipment meant to stun and deter hostile players more available to PvEers. I think it's important to really hone in on the fact that I chose non-lethal tools for this specifically, because this would deter pure PvPers from selecting this faction due to the fact that these tools aren't going to inherently help them win fights without them being creative. They also wouldn't get these tools unless they choose to partake in the PvE aspect of the game, putting them in the same shoes that PvEers are currently in for a time. Then we have the Raiders. This faction is for my PvPers. I tried to be creative with this faction so these guys work a little differently. They would obviously gain rep from combat. They would get a small amount for damage done, a medium amount for downs, and a large amount for performing a knockout. Catch being, for the knockouts they actually have to perform said knockout. Bleedouts give nothing, but if the person surrenders during a knockout animation, you still receive full credit. But there is also an Etra stipulation. In order to receive full credit for your performance, you have to extract. If you get knocked out, you lose say 25% to 40% of the reputation you would have otherwise gained. Getting 10 knockouts is impressive and all, but is it really that impressive if somebody had to lug you home after? Upon getting your token, you would be able to spend it on one of three things. You can get your faction augment. This would be an MK3 combat pack that allows you to stack extra ammo per slot. So instead of 100 light bullets, you would be able to carry 150, basically giving you 3 slots of ammo for the price of 2. But I would also give this pack the ability to have 3 safe slots, being the only combat augment to do so. You would be doing the most dangerous thing in the game, so you should have the ability to bring some stuff home regardless of what happens. This pack would have a drawback though for this. To make up for the save space from higher ammo counts and the extra safe slot, you'll only have 2 quick use slots. So now you have to think, do I keep a shield and a health heal, a grenade and a vita shot? You have to choose wisely. The second and third things go together. In the shop, there would be a slot where you can insert a weapon of your choosing, and for your token, you can either repair or enhance your weapon by 1 level without the material cost. PvP players are usually going to be the ones using and losing the most expensive weapons and gear, and finding the least amount of materials to get them back and upgrade them. Get the streamers out of your head. I'm talking about the general mass majority of PvP players. Not everyone is Shroud, and even Shroud takes an L from time to time. Once again, the theme is not to replace the need to go and find these materials, but from time to time, you'll be able to dodge having to use some of your own rarer materials in order to upgrade a weapon. Or, if you find a purple weapon in disrepair, you can fix it up for basically free. This would help remedy the fact that PvP players are not encouraged to bring high value weapons into raids. They're expensive to build, upgrade, and maintain, and if you make one mistake, you'll lose them. This gear fear creates raids where players will only use free loadouts to try and either steal from PvE players who naturally have more valuable stuff, or they'll throw themselves at hardcore PvPers to have a chance of getting their kit. This will alleviate some of that pain of losing a good setup if you know that you'll either 1, get a powerful augment to help recoup your losses, or 2, be able to get a free upgrade or repair on the next expensive weapon you want to use. Now I understand some people will do back-to-back free raids to try and get free enhances on their powerful weapons, but that's why the token limit is 1 and there's a reputation cap per match. It's going to be a slow process, so you'd probably be better off going looting and trying to find the other parts needed to make the weapons you want to use. And at the end of the day, an enhanced weapon does nothing in your stash, and it only takes 1 mistake to donate it back to the world. And because of the aggressive requirements to earn free upgrades and what would be the most powerful augment among the factions, this would deter anyone who isn't PvP centric from joining the faction, because lower PvP rates and knockout rates would slow the rewards, and the faction is at its most powerful when aggressively taking down raiders with overwhelming ammo counts and storing your loot in safe slots in case you get knocked out. The most important point would be that no one would be restricted from joining whatever faction they please at the end of the day. A person who enjoys the community can absolutely join the raiders to benefit from the free upgrades and powerful augment, but the faction won't provide them with heals and the tools necessary to help others. They'll have to provide that themselves. Same goes for the Arc Hunters. A PvPer can absolutely join the Hunters to benefit from the shock tools and the arc hunting gear, but they have to actively engage in the PvE aspect of the game in order to get those items, exposing them to the risk inherently involved with that. And the faction will not provide them with free upgrades for more expensive weapons that they may desire to use. They have to come up with that on their own. Then of course, the uniforms would create their own drama. Do you trust someone who says they're a protector but they're not wearing their colors? Are raiders shoot on sight because they're wearing their colors? Or is it safe to let somebody know you're an Arc Hunter? All this and more is the drama that faction outfits would make in the game, but more importantly, it would stop people from affiliating store outfits that people find interesting as PvE or PvP outfits. Alright, that's my filibuster. Like I said, this is all my opinion, so if you like or disliked what I said, put down why in the comments. Be constructive and give me your 2 cents. I respond to nearly everyone unless you're disrespectful. Ain't nobody got time for that. Like and subscribe, and until next time, y'all.